welcome back to the Blue Hub YouTube channel, and today we're going to be continuing our GRNI and Xero integration series, specifically looking at accrued transactions today. If you haven't watched our purchase transaction video already, I do recommend going and watching that first, as a lot of the knowledge that we're going to be picking up today is referenced briefly in that video. Accrued transactions are essentially where you want to generate additional transactions through your purchase process to account for goods received not invoiced or goods invoiced not received. Before we get started, there's a bit of housekeeping that we'll need to do, so we can go ahead and I will walk you through what that is. So first of all, you'll need to come to Settings and General Settings, and you will need to turn on Enable Accrued Transactions. Without this turned on, the only transactions will be generated for a purchase process is at the invoice and payment stage. So by clicking Purchase Process Customization and turning on Enable Accrued Transactions, you'll need to assign 2 additional counts, one for goods received not invoiced, which will hold the value of the goods until you receive the invoice, and goods invoiced not received, which will hold the goods in transit until they've actually been received. Okay. The goods received not invoiced account will need to be a current asset or current liability, and goods invoiced not received will need to be a current asset account. So if you haven't got these set up already, you need to go and set those up, and I can show you how now. So we can jump into Xero, head to our accounting screen and chart of accounts, and we're just going to add our 2 account codes. Okay, so first of all, we can start by going add account, and we can create one called, we can put our account type in as current asset, and we can have a random code in there, and we can go goods received not invoiced, hold of PO value. Okay, and then we can set our default tax is VAT on expenses, and we can go ahead and select save. Once we've done that, we can add our GINR account, which can be a current asset. Needs to be a current asset. We can add our code is 668, and we can put goods invoice not received, value of goods in transit, and then we can add 20% tax on this also. Okay. Once we've done that, what you'll need to do is go ahead and go to Settings, Reference Books, Account Mapping, my mistake, Reference Books and Chart of Accounts, and select Load from Xero. Once you select Load from Xero, it will load any recent accounts that have been added, and as you can see, the 2 that I've just added have pulled over, 666 and 668, so that's all great. What we can do now is we can go back into our settings, general settings, purchase process customization, turn on accrued transactions, and assign our relevant accounts. Okay, so we can have our goods received not invoiced account as 666 and goods invoiced not received as 668. Okay, so that's the first thing that you'll need to do, and that's really the only thing that you'll need to action here. And once we're happy with that, we can go ahead and click save, and we're now ready to start processing. So we'll do 2 purchase orders, one for goods received not invoiced, have a look at the transactions, same for GINR, and then look at the transactions. Okay, so to get started, we'll create our simple purchase order. And for goods received not invoiced, you'll want to select stock first. Okay. So what we can do now is we can pull up our order, and we can start to enter the products that we are purchasing. And we can enter in our quantity in here, and we can go ahead and select authorize. Okay, so once we select authorize, same as before, no transactions will be generated unless you have export PO to Xero turned on. And because we now have accrued transactions, when we authorize our stock received and we complete this section, our first transaction will be generated, and that will be to debit our inventory control account, and it will credit our GRNI accrual account that we have created. Whereas previously, it wouldn't do this. By having accrued transactions, it will create this transaction with a holding value of the goods that were on the purchase order. So we should expect to see a transaction for £50. So we'll authorize our stock received, and we'll go to our financials, and you can see successfully our accrued transaction has generated. So it has debited our inventory account and it has credited our goods received not invoiced account with £250. And I incorrectly previously said 50 when in fact it's 250 because the quantity is 5. Okay, so all good so far. The next transaction that will happen is when we actually authorize our invoice. Now this will do the same transaction but with negative amounts. So if I show you what that looks like, so we'll post our invoice number, our invoice date, and we click copy, and then we can go ahead and select invoice. Okay, so what it will do now is remove the value from that goods received not invoiced account, and it will move it over to the actual inventory account. So if we go to financials, we should expect to see 4 transactions, which we do. So our first transaction that we actually posted was this one here. So we debited our inventory account and credited our accrual account. Dia has then done the exact same transaction but removed the value of minus 250 because that was just a holding amount. It has then posted the standard journal of debiting our tax account and crediting our AP account. And then finally, it's generated the normal journal of debiting our inventory account and crediting our accounts payable account with £250. And as with the normal purchase process, if we were to add payment, there'd be an additional transaction to post the payment. Okay, so that's goods received that invoice. Major difference there is it allows you to account for the value of incoming goods, the incoming invoice by using the accrual GRNI account. So rather than no transaction being generated until the invoice, we generate additional transactions to give you better reporting. So the next version is goods invoiced not received. So if I go ahead and clone this order, and we go ahead and mark this as invoice first because now we're doing goods invoiced not received. We can then make sure that we're happy with all our details. Again, exact same process, but now when we authorize, we'll have the invoice first. Same again, no transaction generated at the order point, as you can see here. And with the invoice, we've now received that invoice before we've actually received the stock. So what we want to do in this case is hold a value of it in an in-transit state so we know that it's incoming, okay? So we can put our invoice number in here and our invoice date and click copy and authorize. And what that will do is it will debit our goods invoice not received account and it will credit our accounts payable account, as you can see here, in addition to our tax, of course. So we've got our debit of goods invoice not received, credit accounts payable, and the same for our tax. When we post our stock received, it will debit our inventory account and credit our goods invoice not received because we've now received them items into stock. So if we click authorize and go to financials, you'll be able to see that it's pulled the previous transaction out of the accrual account and put it into our inventory account. So we have debit of our inventory account and the crediting of our goods invoiced not received account. Okay. Final transaction, as always, is if you add the payment in here, that'll also be posted along with any other transactions. So that's accrued transactions. While they might seem complicated off the bat, they're really easy to set up and they can actually give your business much better reporting and visibility on where values are held. So I do actually recommend using them. If you have any questions, please do let us know. And also in terms of Xero and setting up your chart of accounts, as always, please refer to your accountant regarding any advice on setting those accounts up. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, don't forget to subscribe and please leave a comment down below. Thank you.